Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Call IS Electronic Village Tinkering with Technology session. And this is day 2, Thursday. And we've got a wonderful session this morning. I'd like to introduce Kimberly Spallinger. And she will be presenting on creative uses of ArcGIS StoryMaps in University ESOL class. And before we begin, just some admin things. If you do have questions, raise your hands. Feel free to turn on your videos. We're still a small group right now. And you can also keep your mics on, and you can also post questions in the chat. I will be monitoring it, but I'm going to mute myself and take myself off video so Kimberly can take over. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Kimberly, and thank you for attending the session. It's all yours, Kimberly.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for joining me today. I'm honored that you chose my session as part of your TESOL experience this year. And I'm excited to introduce ArcGIS StoryMaps to you today. And I hope that we can leave the session and you'll love the resource as much as I do. So to begin, I have put in the chat a link to a Padlet, and I'm going to share my screen now, but everything that you need for the session today will be in this Padlet. So I hope that you can all see that there. So to begin, we're kind of a small group, but I think I'll go do this. I wanted to start off just for a kind of a point of reference with a little poll on your familiarity with this resource. So if you could click on this Mentimeter, and I'll put it in the chat too, just in case someone's having trouble with just a little poll. So this link is on the Padlet that I have under the first column. It's also in the chat. How familiar are you with ArcGIS StoryMaps? So you can answer, you've never heard of it, or you've heard of it and haven't tried it. You're familiar but haven't used it much at all, or you are very familiar. So if you could go ahead and answer that question.
Okay, just a point of reference. If you click on the link directly, you might be taken out of the Zoom. So copy and paste it and then open up a browser window.
Okay,
just
great.
I did that yesterday from Zoom. No, I was going to do the same thing. So thank you.
Okay, great. So it looks like people have never heard of it or haven't tried it. So that's good, because this is it's a pretty much of an introductory session. So, okay, I'll go ahead and get out of that. Thank you for voting. Get back to my, so basically just a little bit of history about ArcGIS. This is a resource that was launched in 2019, and it's designed as a place-based storytelling tool. You'll see from the names of the resource, it's called StoryMaps, and a lot of the story maps will include maps. I was first introduced to it by some of my graduate students at Bowling Green State University who were in geology. And so they were using it and putting maps into their resources. When I was working with them, though, I was really impressed with the technology, and I thought, well, this could easily be applied to other types of presentations or any type of multimodal writing. And so while it's often used in the sciences, I just wanted to note that it also provides a platform for users to create multimodal projects that help them combine narrative and visual elements. So just to begin, in the Padlet, I have a couple of samples of professional examples, 2 professional examples of story maps, and these are from the Library of Congress. And then I have 4 student examples. And so what I had hoped to do is just to let you take 5 minutes or so to explore these. And if you're in the Padlet, you can look, I can open one up too as well. But just to kind of, what I wanted you to do is kind of look through these and explore and try to come up with like 3 takeaways, like what stands out to you about this resource, or what do you like? Anything that you think is, so this one is again from the Library of Congress that I'm sharing right now. But let's see. Okay, back to this. So instead of me going through and scrolling through these quickly on my own, please take 5 minutes, go through the samples, come up with 3 takeaways or 3 elements that stand out to you about the story maps. Okay, yes, I'll put the link to the Padlet in the. Okay, please let me know if anyone else is having difficulty. Is anyone else having some difficulty getting them to open? They should work just directly from clicking on them, but sometimes I think some of the student examples, for example, it might try to open up, it might ask you to open up into a different window. Are people, yeah, you can click on view original also. Okay, great, thank you. Is this working for everyone now? Okay. Okay, I'll give you one more minute to just look, and we can look at a couple together if someone wants to point things out. Okay. Okay, and for the sake of time, and you will have access to this Padlet later if you want to continue to look at some samples, but for the sake of time, I'm just curious, what are some of the takeaways that you took from, if most of you said you were unfamiliar with StoryMaps, so what are 3 things that you noticed about this resource, or anything about a particular sample that you liked, didn't like, that you think might be useful? You can put in the chat, or you're welcome to also chime in and talk if you want. We're a small group. Okay, so I'm trying to, okay, so some people are noticing how it's streamlined and easy flow for the eyes to follow. Okay, great. Matching the narration with the images. Okay, there are some animated elements. And somebody said the student examples look like a professional news website. Okay, great, thank you. Anything else anyone wants to point out? Just a little bit of an example note to the students is that, yes, so the first student was an ESOL student. The next 3 examples are domestic students here in the United States. I also teach domestic students. But yeah, these were sophomores in an intermediate writing class, and I do agree that they're able to look like a professional site. So the good news is that this, sorry, my computer fell. The good news is that this is actually a pretty easy software to use, or easy resource to use. So what I'd like you to do, if you're in the Padlet, you can begin by just creating a public account, which mine's going to go directly in. So you can go ahead in there and click that link. It will ask you to register for an account, and then you'll get an email. So I'll let you do that. While you are doing that, I just wanted to highlight that everything that you're going to need for our session today is on this Padlet. In the next category, it will say, I have some detailed instructions that I made that you can download for how to make a story map from there too. So I'll go ahead and let you go ahead and click on the link to make your account. Let me know. It should, I think it does send you an email to confirm. And maybe give me a thumbs up, or let me know when you have. I did do this the other day, and I think it took like 1 minute for me to receive the email to set up my account. Okay, how are we doing with the account? Have people been able to? I think I have been using, I have a question about, do I recommend the Mac app for Mac users, or is a browser just as easy? I only use the browser version. I do have a Mac, but I use the browser version. And I think especially for the purposes of today, I think I would start with the browser version. It's just as easy. Great question. Okay, are people still waiting for the confirmation email, or has anyone been able to log in yet? Okay, some people have their account created. Okay, great. Okay, so what I want to do now is, as I said, on the Padlet, there are detailed instructions. I'm going to do a quick demo for you just to show you how easy it is to do many of the features in StoryMaps. And then after that, I'm going to give you your own assignment where you can try to make a story map that we can then share. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat, and I can try to help you as you go. But to begin, and again, I'm looking directly at the handout that I gave you, which you can download later. But the first thing you're going to do is just click on Start a Story. Okay, and when you're here, I recommend starting off by clicking on Design from the very beginning. And when you're in design, you'll notice a couple of things. You can have what you want your cover page, if you want it to be minimal, or if side-by-side view, where you'd have a picture here and a story on the side, or you would want it to be full screen. I'm going to start this way. Note that it has a navigation tool. If you click this, it would give your viewers the chance to have tabs that they could click on to get to different parts of your story. And you also have this, which is a credit section, which basically is a place for you or your students to list references. So I'm going to click on this to start, and then I'm going to click on Add a Cover Image. So I'm going to just click on this, browse my files, and I have a photo here. This is East Hall in Bowling Green State University, where I work in the English department. So this is what we're going to see. So I'm going to click this, and now we'll see this is my story. I'm going to title my story. Okay, and what I just clicked on the image options, and I wanted to point this out just for a quick, easy thing. If you got a picture from a source, or you want to give a different attribution, you can put that here, and that will show up. Another thing to put that I think is really helpful about story maps, and I know it's very important for our student writers to try to make their work accessible and to be introduced to this early. And so it's a great, you just click on properties, and it is a way that you can add alternative text. Doing this will make the material accessible for those who use screen readers. So I'm going to, normally I would write a little more here, but I'm just going to write very quickly. That. Okay, so then this is now accessible to those who would have screen readers. So this is basically the beginning, and we're all set with our beginning, with our cover slide. It's very simple. The next thing that you're going to do is just click where it says tell your story. And this introduces the block palette. And this is basically the building blocks of how you can do story maps. And so you can notice it has, you can add just basic text, you could add media, or you could have some immersive elements. So we're going to start by just saying we want to add an image. And so I'm going to browse again. Let's see. Let's click on this one. Another view from my building. And so you can see here's a picture, another picture. And right at the top, it lets you figure out how you want to format it. I kind of liked it. You could do it that way. I'm going to keep it just in the middle. And again, you could add your citation. You can click here and you could add text. Okay, so that's just a simple way to add a picture. I'd encourage you today to try to add an immersive element. So we're going to scroll down. And please let me know if I'm going too quickly. But there are two options that I would like you to consider for the immersive options. The first one is you can make a slideshow. And I've seen some story maps where people have actually incorporated PowerPoint slides. This would be a great way. If you do a slideshow, the content will be visible laterally to your audience. So I'm going to just do a couple pictures. Some people like to do this and use the same picture for all of the slides. And then I'm just going to say use of ESOL. I think you're going to be sick of seeing my building by the time this is done. I'm going to add it, but you can add different text or video. Okay, so this would be it, and you can keep going if you want. And as I said, some people like to do the same building, same picture and put text over different text that would come up over it. But again, it's a great feature to have. Okay, the next immersive element that I like is this sidecar. And this, if you remember from the sample, sometimes you would see text that would kind of float up. The first one that you can have is a floating panel. Someone mentioned Trisha's example from the student examples. She used a docked panel where you could put a picture and then you could have scrolling text that would be on the side. So if you have a lot of text that you want to add, the docked panel is very good. If you just have a small amount of text, I recommend the floating panel. Okay. All right, so here, all you do is again, add a picture. And then you would add text. And again, you can add more pictures as you want. You just have to keep clicking the plus button here on the side. But here, if you want this floating text, you could just put in the text that you want to. So I want to say review university library. Okay, so this would then float up on the screen. Okay, now I know I'm going through quickly, but I think the best way to do this is to try to learn how to do it in your own. But I'm going to show you one more feature, and this is the swipe feature. And this is really useful if you do something with maps, but you don't have to either. I'm going to add two pictures here. Let's see, I'll add this one. And what this would be useful for is it lets viewers kind of slide a picture over this way. And so it's kind of fun. And then finally, you can see at the bottom, if you're having students do, I've had students do entire research essays this way, where they're mixing in video, different elements, and they have their references, they can add those here. I should point out at the very beginning, when we first did the source citation for the image, if a student got a picture from a source, you can click on it right here. It shows up. This is where that can be listed. Okay. So once you have, this was a very basic 3-minute story maps. So what you can do now is hit preview, and this then will let you see it from different platforms. You can see what it would look like on a cell phone. We're looking at it from a computer, but you can then see this is what here. And again, clearly, if we had more time, we could make this look a lot better, but you can see how easy it is for students to create this. And if they spend a little bit of time, come up with a essay or a digital format that looks very professional. Okay. Now, when you are ready to publish, you would just click here, and you can make it private, which is what most of my students do. They would make it private, and then they can just share the link with the instructor, or you can have it public where everyone can see your story map. So that is a very quick demo. Are there any questions or comments before I introduce and have you start playing around with the story maps?
Could you show the citing thing again, how students would cite where they got images? I think I was looking away and.
Oh, yep, sorry, yep, no, thank you. Okay, so great. So if you go up to any image and you click here, and it has the image options, display, fill, crop. So now that we actually have an image, it's saying we could do some things here, but it has an attribution that we can just click right here and add that. And that would then, if you hit save on this image, then it comes up right here where they got that picture from. Okay, great. Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, are you ready to try? I will say, oh, I think one other thing that's really useful is if you change your mind, you can drag too, like if you want to change the order around, you can just move things this way, move it up. Like you can just, it's really easy to move. Like if you decide that you want to change the order, you just click on this little button right here, and then you can pull and move things to where you want it to be. Okay. All right, so that was a quick introduction to how to do story maps. Again, if you're looking at the Padlet, this column here has detailed instructions for making story maps. Basically, this was what I had, a more professional version of what I just did. Here is one that we made last year. I was graduate coordinator for the English department, and I used this to send to our incoming students a kind of welcome to BGSU. So you can see it looks a little better when I have a little more time, but this is basically exactly what I did and just added information so they kind of knew a little bit about the side, our university. So, okay. So what I would like you to do is to try to make your own story map. And you can do any story map that you want, but if you would like a little inspiration, I would like to give you the same assignment that I gave to my three student samples over here, the ones that were kind of about COVID. We in that class, it was an intermediate writing class, and they were, we looked at the Library of Congress samples, and those were our inspiration. And their task was to try to come up with a digital exhibit. And so you can see under the task, create a digital exhibit, some information that I gave to them. But what they were supposed to do was choose a topic, a contemporary issue, problem, or debate that seems crucial to this particular moment in time. And obviously for those three students, they chose things related to COVID, and they had to come up with artifacts, and the artifacts could be text messages, it could be images, videos, anything that they would like future generations to remember about that particular time. And so it could be anything that you think this would be interesting in. I mean, they were very inspired. A lot of my students had not heard of the 1918 influenza. And so that, you know, how could they help someone 100 years from now maybe think about that particular moment? So what I'd like you to do is come up with, let's try to do 3 artifacts, and you can get those from Google Images or anything that you think that you would like to try to put in a story map. Does that make sense to everyone? Questions? Are we good? Okay. So what I'd like to do is give you 15 minutes. So let's see. Okay. Okay, perfect. All right. So I'd like to give you 15 minutes to try this out. I'm going to stay here. If you have any questions, you can ask me. And then at the end of 15 minutes, I'm going to put you into small breakout rooms so you can kind of share in a small group what you did, and we'll come back together. Okay. All right, you may begin. You have 15 minutes to try to play around. feel free to send me a direct message or raise your hand if you have questions. I think we might have had a couple of people who just joined. So I'm going to, the people are already working on a project I just put in the chat, a link to a Padlet that has the information from the session today with some instructions. If you would like to look at that, and you can send me a message and I'll help you.
Yeah, Kimberly, quick question. Is Sandy. Your students, so was that original writing on some of those examples? So they were reading and maybe summarizing, putting their facts together. So, okay, so you've got a lot of skills that's amazing. Okay, just just checking. So we probably won't have time to do a whole lot of writing, but maybe just start off. You're muted. I do that all the time.
Okay, sorry. No, for your session here, we won't be able to do a lot of writing, but my students they did this project in about 2.5 weeks, so they had time to do writing.
Well, and the Library of Congress is an amazing source. There's all those primary sources that are incredible. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, great. No, thank you. And if you just joined, please, did everyone see the Padlet? You can kind of start there. I know some people did just join and say they're interested. If you click on that Padlet, it goes through a lot of the information that we went over so far in the session. Okay, not to panic you, but we'll have about 5 minutes before we come back together. And okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to ask you to stop or pause your projects for now. Any initial reactions? How did that go? I know you weren't able to finish, perhaps, but someone says the process is very engaging. Great. And were you able to get a couple of pictures up? And again, I do know that you did not have a lot of time to write text, but if you were giving this to your students, it's a good, they would have time to do so. Okay. Well, what I would like to do is just do a little bit of sharing. We're a small group, but I'd still like to try to put us into small breakout rooms just so you can share. So someone said, how do you prepare students beforehand? It was a writing class that I had for the student samples that we had, but I basically gave students instructions similar to the ones that I have on the Padlet. I created kind of a step-by-step guide. My students actually had the choice to use a couple of different platforms for the assignments that they did. And so not all students chose to do StoryMaps, but quite a few did. And so do they need a refresher on copyright attribution? Yes. So in my class, yes, they did. We saw this as a regular writing assignment it was a writing class. And so they were very familiar with the importance of citations, adding citations and using things that are like, they couldn't put music up, if they wanted to without without thinking about copyright. So we addressed it as a normal writing class, how we would address those things, but thank you. Okay, so I'd like to put you into a breakout room just for 5 minutes to share. If you get done early, just try to share with a partner, and then so you can kind of show what you did. Okay. All right, so I'm going to put you into breakout rooms to share. You can also talk about your thoughts or share things, and then we'll come back together and kind of brainstorm some uses for this. Okay, I've opened the rooms. Okay. And Mohammed, let me know if you would like to join a room. It seems like you.
You're muted, Kimberly. You're muted. I keep doing that too.
I think when I come back, I was in a couple of breakout rooms, and when I came back, it mutes me automatically. Sorry.
Yeah, I saw. Well, Hallie, actually, I sent her the link to mine so she could share her screen. So it was all good. So you'll see the link in the chat box.
Okay. So we did have, okay, some people were having trouble sharing the screen. Was anyone able to share their screen?
I did allow on my end where you
Mhm.
could share multiple users, so they
Okay.
should have been able to. And that's a Zoom glitch too.
Okay, so maybe that was something, but I do know someone was having trouble even getting the
Yeah.
ARC. So I do have some instructions just from ArcGIS on how to, like, once you hit, okay, here's like I put in the chat how you can publish and then share. That's the link to them. I think there was some questions
Yes.
about that. Okay.
Now everybody can share their screen now, just so you know.
Okay. Did anyone want to share, show a picture or show what they did? Any volunteers? So
I can volunteer. I didn't exactly do what you did because I was inspired. This would be perfect for my community outreach class.
oh,
They
nice.
have to research another culture,
Mhm.
present on it. So I thought, well, why don't I start putting together something
Wow.
really quick? And then I threw up this map, and then I was thinking about what you told me here, and you can build your own map.
Mhm.
Although I couldn't tell if there was a feature to kind of like, if I wanted to outline the map, it didn't seem to let me do that. So I had to just like put a circle around it. But I was trying to do that in the, what do you call it? The slideshow. So I had that, and then on another picture, not a really great, I need a better picture, under pressure. But that's really as far as I got, trying to figure out what looks good and how it works and
Nice.
kind of stuff. So
Well, that's a lot. Thank you. I think it looks really nice for 10 minutes of work. That's pretty impressive. Great. Did anyone else want to share or do some?
Kimberly, I had to put my link in there. So if someone wants to share their screen, they can bring up my link. I just can't share my screen.
Okay. Yeah, I can share my screen and have
Okay, if you wanted to see that. And
yeah.
so what I'm doing now is very high level English, and we're on work and leisure this week. So there's a lot of really good vocab when you talk about history of labor unions and that go up. So what I did was I found those, and there's attribution and primary sources. So I thought, and then there is if you scroll up, it should show, there is an image there that I found for the AFL-CIO, which is, very culture bound here. So it's good for, understanding where we've come from, and, those are still in existence. Anyways, there's a lot out there. It's amazing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like both of those. And I think it just shows what you're able to do under a really short time period. So imagine if you had some more time. Again, I did want to point out that I did put instructions in for how to publish and how to share. Once I can share that screen, but that's in the chat for how to publish your story and then how to share it. But I did just want to end our time today, and I'll stick around if anyone has some specific questions, but I did want to just we're getting just a couple of minutes left, just to show how I've used this with students. And so I've used it as a form of multimodal writing. So I've had students actually do entire research essays. Instead of just doing a traditional research essay, they've done their research essay and incorporated different forms of media using story maps. And it's worked out really well. They've done the doc screen where they can add a lot of text along the side. And I've also had students do summaries. The one ESOL example was from a student in physics, and it was a graduate student, and I gave a task of take something really complicated from your field and try to summarize it and make it for a wider audience. And then my favorite assignment has been the virtual digital exhibits, which is what we just did, kind of the archival projects too. I also wanted to point out that it's a great alternative to PowerPoint for presentations if students are looking for other ways of sharing their work or doing an assignment in that way. I think it works well. But we only have, I think, 1 minute left, but did anyone else have any ideas that came to mind for how to use this or different types of assignments? Oh, for preparing a CV? Yeah, that would be, I think, especially like if you were, that would be a great way to have a CV maybe, or to present yourself. Anything else? Oh, a children's book? Good, you have all kinds of great ideas. Yeah, I think it would be an arrival stories. Okay, I would love to see that. Yeah, I haven't done a lot actually with using maps, even though it is story maps, but I really appreciate a way to incorporate that in, because I do know there are a lot of features that you can play around with that. Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for participating today and trying this out. I hope that you do have a time that you can do this more in the future and introduce it to your students. The instructions that I have posted on the Padlet, feel free to download those and share those with your students. My students were able to make them using kind of just following those instructions. So great, thank you.
Okay, well, Kimberly, thank you so much. This was just an amazing session. And I want to thank everybody for attending. I think it not only, we learned so much and we learned about a new program, but you really got everybody inspired to do more. It's such a great resource, but it's more important when someone can actually present it so that it's meaningful. So it was really a pleasure. And just in closing, I am, like I said, unable to share my screen, but if you will look in the chat, you can follow the Call IS. We've got YouTube channel, Facebook, and everything is being updated all the time, and you will be able to access the recording of this video. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording and thank you all for coming and wish you a wonderful day.
Thank you.
So thank you.